Okay, so now that we have this result, we're going to need to basically start to get rid of this light that's back here. So we're going to start to use luminance keys to do that. And we can basically treat it the same way that these keys are being plugged into this chain here. So I haven't used key 3 yet. It looks like that's the little test we did, but I'm going to put it over here and just start with one key here. So I'm going to try to target this side first and start to get rid of that light there. So I'll put a keyer node and I'll plug this in and pull it down. I'm going to do this faster again, as this is not new information. It's just working through my process. So we can open this up here and look at the alpha that this is giving us. We know that the character needs to be white and our background needs to be black, so I'm going to hit invert. And we can see it's already doing a decent job. But one thing to note with these footages is if I go back to it and sample in the light area, we can see some of the values are actually above 1. So the way this A and B is kind of working is setting the black and white point. So if we move the B, we can see it's kind of crunching it like that. But we see that the value is set to 1. So what you can actually do is increase above 1, and you see that we're actually getting more detail back by doing that. So when you're dealing with footages that go over 1, which means we're dealing with what's called super whites, that's something you need to keep in mind, that your keyer by default is kind of going to 1, but we can go above. Usually you don't have to use C and D, which can basically, if I adjust it, you can see you can fill some areas back in with white if you use those, but we're not going to do that, and pretty much I never use them. So, but okay, so we can see that this is keying this area pretty well, but over here maybe it's a little bit too crunchy. So if we try a different frame, like frame 42, we see if we look at the actual original and we kind of gain down, there's a lot of motion blur there, and this keyer is actually crunching it off. So what we need to do is create multiple of these luminance keys for each area of this light. So for this area, for this side, the right side, I'll adjust that B number here with up and down arrow keys and just try to get some of that detail back. And again, I'm not paying attention to the gray over here. I'm just trying to get one area over here working. So I'll expand it to about there, which seems pretty good. And so this will be the left side. This will be the right side. And then I'll just do another one for the center, sort of this area here. And I'll double click that. And let me actually copy one of my other keyers so I don't have to redo it. So something like this, and then for that middle area, I'm just going to make it so it's keying this area well. So I'm just going to adjust the B, and we don't want to push it too far because then we start to lose the motion blur of the edge. So I'm going to push it until we have a little bit of gray, and then what you can do is use a gamma afterwards. So basically this A and B in the keyer is doing the same thing as the black point and white point in the grade. So if I look at this, I switch this to RGB A, so we're grading our alpha. If I adjust the white point and adjust the black point, you see it's basically doing the same thing. But if we use gamma, it's a little bit different. So it kind of changes the way that falls off. So we can get rid of some of that gray, but also maintain a little bit of that detail if we use the gamma. So that's pretty cool. You can see it's kind of taking too much over here, but this is the area I'm mostly concerned with, is the middle. So I'm just making that there. So I've kind of split this off into 3. And this is just for this shot in particular. It's not like this is a common thing, but I'm just looking at the shot and logically saying, okay, well, key this area, key this area, and key this area, and we'll mix them together. So I'm going to leave these two. I'm going to label them just so it's clear for everyone opening the script. So I'm going to say right key, screen right key, screen right light key, just so we know that we're doing the ceiling light up there. And I'll put that as a backdrop, and I'll put some backdrops on these ones as well. So we'll say screen left, and we'll put one on the bottom here and say screen center light key. Okay, so we have those 3 keys. Now we just want to combine them into each of their areas that is relevant to, so we see this side. Let's start with that one. So I'll do a key mix. Actually, we'll do it over here just because it's easier. So I'll say A mix with B. And so we want to mix the screen center with the screen right one. And the A input will be the rotoshape that we plug into it. So if I take the rotoshape, again, remembering to grab our reformat, because we're working on a 4K plate in a 2K project setting. If I do that, so the A input is our screen center light. So I want to roto the screen center area. And I'll probably feather that off a little bit. So I'm pressing E to expand that area. And we might even need another keyer for this lower area, but we'll just start with this for now. So we'll do the same thing. So another key mix, and I'm gonna make this the B input, and the A input will be our screen left key. And we'll plug in a roto, put the reformat, and I'll roto the left area. And again, I'm gonna blur that out. Instead of pressing E a bunch, I'm just gonna take the feather and do it here. That's pretty much doing the same thing. So we can just increase it. So there we go. And that's pretty good. So now we got screen center, screen left mixed in there. You might need to do another one, but let's just see. So I'm gonna go to a different frame just to check. You always want to check your keys across different frames. So I'm gonna expand that roto just a little bit so that it's kind of covering. And it's looking pretty good. Seems like we're maintaining a decent amount of motion blur there. We might be able to do some other tricks to get some more back if we need to at the end. But like I said, I tried to get the overall key working pretty well. And then if there's specific areas we want to bring back a little bit of detail at the end, and when we compare to our original footage, that's how we'll do it, rather than getting too detail focused right away. So I think that's good enough for now. Maybe I'll do one more key just down in this lower area. So let me just break this again. I'm going to move this down and put a little dot here by pressing Control. And I'll move this over. And we'll put this here, and we'll call this one screen left lower light key. So same area, it's just a little bit, we're gonna focus on this lower, underneath the armpit sort of thing. So if I open this up and adjust that B number there, again, we don't wanna crunch it too far where we see that we're losing the edge. We don't want edges that look like that because that's not accurate to the plate. We wanna maintain as much of that detail as possible. So I'll just leave it like this, and then I'll just put a grade, RGBA, or just alpha, and just gamma it down a little bit. So we lose a tiny bit of the edge detail, but you know, it works pretty well still. So and then I'll put a roto shape into that grade. I'm gonna do a roto shape in that grade and just grade only the gray area here actually. And one thing, make sure you have your reformat on there. You can either put a reformat or just set this to no clip. Just put the reformat though, just so people don't get confused. So something like that. And that should be good enough for now. It's just, yeah, and then we'll mix that onto that area as well. So I'm just gonna copy that same roto, paste it here, and then use a key mix. So A mixed over B, and then using that mask of that area. And we can take a look. So maybe we want to expand that a little bit further. So I'll take this roto on this one and just make it a little bit wider. And we'll just push it all the way up here, it looks like. So something like that. And Okay, so that's this whole little area. So this is another key. So just to keep it clear for everybody, I'll label this. I'm going to expand my script a little bit so that we have more room. So I'm just moving everything, sliding everything over, kind of making it a little bit bigger. And then I'll just put a backdrop on this whole thing and say overhead light key. So we got that, and then we'll just make that a little bit less saturated and maybe make it a little bit green so that we know that that's a key. And that's good. And now basically what we want to do is we want to take this result that's getting a key for this whole upper area and mix it over our key that we're working on. So we want to bring that in. So this is our key before. It's doing a good job over the green screen, but it's not doing anything above the head. So we're mixing the whole key that we just created over here with this key. So if I just draw where we did all that work with just a basic rotor shape, making sure to put your reformat, and we can see we're starting to get the alpha that we're expecting. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Again, I don't want to go too far down here because then we lose all the work that we did, you know, on some of these edges down there. So I'm going to keep it sort of near the top where this is happening. And you see where our problem comes in with this frame. But we've done the garbage mat and we've done the rotoscoping. So you'll see how that looks in a second. So we'll just make this kind of line up there. Of course, you could track this, but like I said, the camera's barely moving. So it's pretty much just very simple to adjust the rotor shape on these two start and end frame kind of thing. And okay, so this middle area that's not keyable, again, we have the garbage mat, so that rotos it out. So it kind of erases those bad areas. We can see it's erasing all the side stuff because we don't care about that. And we're erasing this center area. We'll probably do one here as well. And then we're rotoscoping back in the edges. So you see we're starting to restore some of the area. You'll see where our problems are going to be. You know, we need to make these alphas blend into each other. So we have like the rotor shapes, and then we have like the plate sort of alpha here, and we have like a very harsh edge. So we'll be able to blend this using a couple tricks. And yeah, so we'll do that next after we kind of work our other areas up a little bit more. So one thing I'm going to do is in our garbage mat, I still need to roto off this area because we have that little area that we can't key. So I'll just put a rotor shape there as well and add it into the garbage mat. Just to remove it. And you see the areas that we're keeping are the holdouts. So the holdouts are coming back over the top. And something like that. And I'll go to the start frame and just make sure that it's sort of lining up in the place that we want. It's kind of hard to tell everything going crazy right now, so I'm going to look at the footage while I'm doing this and go back to RGB and just make sure. So I'm just trying to roto out the areas that are not keyable. So something like that. We go to the middle frame just to make sure that we're not rotoing anything we could key. I'll just roto off that. And we could key some of the green areas, but it's just not worth the effort because there's some weird stuff behind. So although, yeah, you might be able to get a key, but there's just really a lot going on there. So I just wouldn't even bother. And we see our roto needs to be expanded onto here as well. So this needs to be, so this would be where the track could have helped us a little bit if I would have done a 2D track. So we could track the tracking marker back there and put that track onto this rotor shape so that it kind of sticks to the frame. But, you know, it's only a couple little spots here that I need to adjust. So I'm just going through and making sure my garbage mat is covering those bad areas. So yeah, you guys can fast forward this if you want, or just continue to see how I'm doing it. We'll just take a look at the pre-multiply results. We copy the alpha back in and we look at the pre-multiply result. And we can see that this is what our alpha is looking like, which is starting to get there. It looks pretty crazy right now, but we can see that we've made progress. So these kind of keys take time. You know, they're not just instant. But we can see around the character's edge is starting to see something. We're starting to get the shape of around. You see that we're getting white around the edges of the character, and that's going to be a very tricky D-spill problem that we're going to have to deal with. And that's why these type of keys are very difficult, because a very backlit character pretty much produces these type of images. So that's why we're doing this, because we want to learn how can we handle something that's a little bit more difficult. So if we go to the holdout mats as well, what we can do is if we look at the roto shapes, let's just take a look. What we can do is fill in the little holes that aren't covered by roto as well. We can see his face. So these will be easy to roto because it's really not close to the edge. So I can do it very quickly. So I can just go like this and kind of fill it in, and then go to the different frames and just move that shape there and just kind of fill that center in there. So that's happening because our garbage mat is going into the character's face and it's not covered by our rotoscoping, but it's totally fine because that's to be expected. We can easily fix that by creating these sort of filler holdouts. And I'll go to the last frame here and move it into place. So here our garbage mat isn't going far enough. So again, go back to the garbage mat. I just want to make sure that gets rid of the problem area behind. So that's working pretty well. You see we're starting to get rid of these nasty areas. Looks like there's a light back here as well. Let me just see if I rotoed that. If I rotoed enough. It looks like I did. I rotoed far enough. So we need to expand our garbage mat. So we want to say, if we look at our alpha like this, we want to cut out all those little spindles, and we also want to cut out that light that's hanging over the green screen. So we want to add a piece to our garbage mat like this. And you see it cuts away from our character, but it's okay because, again, we add it back on top with our holdout mat. And then we can look at the pre-mult and see exactly what's happening. So I'm just going to go through and make sure that that's... I'm going to look at the footage while I'm doing this because it might just be easier. I think it only appears at the last frames here, so we'll just kind of make sure, though. Yeah, so again, probably would have been a little bit faster to do the 2D track of the background. But it should be okay. All right, let's take a look at the pre-mult. And good, so this is good to go. So I'm just looking at the edge. There's a hole in the center, but that's, again, really easy to roto because I don't need to make sure that, you know, it matches the edge or anything. I can just put a really sloppy shape and it's not going to take very long. So I can go back to the holdout mat, add another sloppy sort of filler shaped circle here, and just make sure that our garbage mats don't put holes in our character, kind of. So I'll keep these are the mods. So I'm adding to these alphas up here. I'm not going to put those modified versions up here so that you guys will be able to do this process and remember that it's common to have this problem. But if you want to copy the alpha that's in my actual script, for whatever reason, they're in the script here. But I'm not going to modify the ones that are up here on the assets. So let's just keep going. So it's a little bit of roto, but not too bad in terms of what we have to do. And normally it's common that you'll have to, sometimes you get roto provided to you and you'll actually have to do this where the roto doesn't cover enough of the area that you're trying to deal with. So it's not uncommon to have to add a little bit to what you're given. And if you're working in television, I've worked in television as well. Pretty much you'll do all of your roto by yourself the majority of the time, unless you're working on potentially, you know, high-end television, like something like The Mandalorian or something like that. You know, those type of bigger studios will provide you roto, even though it's television. So, all right, let's close this and just look at our pre-mult. So this is looking pretty good. We still obviously have some pretty big issues in terms of despill and some alpha that needs to be cleaned up there. But we can see we're starting to get our character off the background, and our alpha is starting to get there. We need to add more filler shapes, so I'm going to keep adding those. Like on the elbow, go up here and add another filler shape on our holdout matte layer, and just animate that through to make sure. And I'm not turning on the motion blur on that one. Actually, I think it has motion blur by default because we set it to global in our settings there. So it's fine that it has motion blur, I think, in this case, but let's just keep going here and fill all of those areas. So I think that looks pretty good. So, yeah, this is, you know, it's not something to be super worried about when you have all those really bright edges. It's expected. So we'll move on to the next lesson here, and we'll start to restore part of this head. So if we look at the alpha here, you know, our garbage mat is kind of cutting off his head there. Let's just look at the original picture. The reason I cut off his head is because that key that we did back there might not work for where his head is kind of crossing these two objects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually key mix in another key, but I'm going to do it after the holdout and the garbage mats. So sometimes it's easier just to like do your holdouts, do your garbage mats, and then if there's like one area that you need to mix back in, like this, for example, we'll just mix it in below. So just after the garbage and holdouts. And so we'll take a look at that in the next video. I won't make this video too long by itself. But yeah, basically main purpose of this specific lesson was to fill in these holes. And just going to go through and finish that up. So that should be good enough for now. We'll move on to the next one. And if I have a couple more holes, I'll just do them off the recording in terms of those specific areas.